Now, the UK's Development Finance Institution, the CDC, recently announced a $1 billion target for investments across Africa for 2021. It is targeting sectors such as infrastructure and finance, and it is looking at countries like Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia and Egypt. Now, in Kenya, the group has over $326 million committed to supporting about 80 companies that provide over 27,000 jobs in the country. The CDC also plans to expand its Kenya portfolio over the next 2 years as one of the top priority markets. Well, let's now get a bit better picture of the CDC's plans on the continent. And of course, here in Kenya, we're now joined by Seema Danani. She's the head of office and coverage director for the CDC here in Kenya. Great to have you with us on the show, Seema. Now, of course, as we just mentioned, the CDC seems to be ramping up financing in Africa, especially at a time when we're seeing international lenders, investors, private equity funds sort of reducing their exposure to the continent. So, as we mentioned, you plan to invest over $1 billion this year alone. Summing up your investment activities in Africa so far, what is the CDC's specific focus or target on the continent?
Sure, and let me first say thank you so much for having me on today. To answer your question, I think that as a development finance institution, it's so important for us to be counter-cyclical and remain committed to our markets as investees and during this really difficult time. Our commitment this year, as you mentioned, is $1 billion for Africa, but it's not new. Over the last 3 years, we've actually invested just shy of $4 billion in Africa, more than half of our capital. And with respect to targets, I think we're really looking to support investees in clean energy, transportation infrastructure, food security, as well as the retailing of staple items and also industrials in the market.
Now, you certainly have huge plans here in Kenya. Just pointing to one, you partnered with Kenya's Equity Group on a $100 million funding facility to, of course, support small and medium enterprises during COVID-19. Give us a sense of how you plan to expand your Kenya portfolio going forward over the next 2 years, and in what specific areas are you looking at?
Sure. We're very keen to grow our presence in Kenya, although I must add again, Kenya is not a new market for us. We've been investing here for over 70 years, and today our portfolio supports, as you earlier mentioned, close to 30,000 jobs across the numerous sectors. But as a regional economic hub, Kenya is a priority market for CDC, and we're really proud to be able to contribute towards strengthening the private sector and supporting innovative, pioneering businesses that drive economic development. So in that vein, we'll continue our work on clean energy, although in Kenya we have very well-developed renewable sectors. So we'll focus on battery storage of power and ways in which we can support the transmission and distribution of power through one of our platform companies called GridWorks. Under food and agriculture, we'll like to focus on regenerative agriculture and reforestation through a forestry platform that we're looking at. In the manufacturing sector, we're looking out for low carbon technology assets and industries that are adopting circular economy practices. By that I mean sort of recycling practices. And we'll also continue our work to provide technical assistance through CDC Plus. CDC Plus has really been able to support quite a number of our investees, particularly in the healthcare space, especially during the early days of the pandemic. And more recently, they've launched the Africa Insights platform, which helped to solve the problem of not having access to reliable data on which private and public sector entities can depend on to make critical investment decisions.
Well, on that note, you're also targeting other key markets in Africa, as you sort of mentioned, Egypt, Ethiopia, Nigeria. Give us a sneak peek into some of those upcoming projects.
Yeah, so we're very excited to expand our reach across the continent and very, very, very keen. The focus areas I've mentioned won't change across those geographies, but I think what will be key is really looking at a couple of themes. So the first is really around climate finance. We're very keen to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and invest in projects that will assist in our transition to net zero emissions by 2050. We want to support projects that ensure what we call a just transition towards climate change. And by this, I mean we want to ensure communities are equipped with the right skills to work and operate new technologies. And all of these will be in line to ensure that 30% of annual commitments that we make this year will go towards climate finance. Another theme for us that you'll see across our markets will be of that of gender lens investing. So we have existing partnerships with the likes of the Boardroom Africa, who assist experienced African women to get into the boardroom. We also established and actually co-founded the 2X Challenge with partner DFIs, where we've encouraged investments into projects that empower women as entrepreneurs, that empower women as employees, as well as women as the consumer of products and services. And to date, we've mobilized $4.5 billion in that space. And I'm sure you'll see more of those types of investments from us as overarching themes going forward.
Well, very quickly, I just want to hone in on the agriculture sector, because we know the CDC is part of some major projects in Africa's agricultural sector. It's a key time because a food crisis looms on the continent. We're also seeing the frequency and severity of climate change sort of increasing on the continent. So how's the CDC putting their hat into that sector?
So we've been working actively in this space, recognizing the issues around food security for quite some time now. We've recently announced a $100 million debt investment in the agricultural conglomerate ETG. Our funding with ETG will help to strengthen food value chains by expanding logistical networks. And the investment actually helps to support over 500,000 farmers across 29 countries across the continent. And this is really about helping them to connect them to global markets and enabling their financial independence. In the same area, we've recently supported the Fatiza Food Fund 2, which targets over 90,000 smallholder farmers and micro entrepreneurs, creating over 2,000 jobs and sustaining another 10,000. So the focus of the fund will be on increasing agricultural output by promoting smarter methods to enhance crop resilience, decrease wastage, and of course, thereby increasing yields and incomes for the farmers. But it's not just in the food sector that we've been able to make some big announcements recently. Another critical sector to all of our economies right now is in pharmaceuticals, and we recently announced the Zanzibar Pharmaceuticals project, where we've entered into a consortium that will provide $250 million to establish a manufacturing facility that will improve the availability and affordability of generic pharmaceuticals across the continent. So these are some really big projects in very critical sectors, and we're really excited to see those come to fruition this year.
Well, we're certainly watching. Thank you so much for joining us, Seema, on the show today. That, of course, is Seema Danani. She's the head of office and coverage director for the CDC here in Kenya.